Okay, everyone, welcome. Episode 4, Anti Influencer. We're on a roll. We are excited to be here. I'm Nick Baldwin. I got Stacey Sauls here also. What's up, Stacey?
Hey Nick. Oh, I'm so excited about our guest today. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be a really good one. I'm excited too because I don't know this person I didn't know this person prior to doing the podcast. So whenever I don't know somebody, it always feels like I learned a lot more. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. So our guest is Linde Moore, and we'll have her obviously tell you more about herself. But she knocked my socks off when I met her. She's been through a lot. She grew her business from the ground up without, all the influencer things that we see today. She wasn't posing in front of fancy cars. She wasn't out there saying, look at me, look at me. She's just one of the most beautifully authentic humans I've ever met.
Well, that's why we're doing this podcast, because we're all about authenticity. Hustle culture can go out the window. So let's bring Linde Moore on to the podcast right now. Hey, there you are.
Hey Nick, hey Stacey.
Hey, Lindy. We're so glad to have you.
Yeah, thanks for being on with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So I'm Linde Moore.
So tell us a little bit about your story. Where are you from? When did you start in real estate? How'd you get into it?
Okay, so I am. I live currently in the Atlanta area, Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a Georgia peach through and through. I'm from North Georgia, but I've been in the Atlanta area for over 20 years. I had gotten into commercial real estate around 2007, 2008, and I had worked in apartments, and so I worked for an apartment developer. We did everything from the land acquisition to the development to the construction to getting them occupied and all the way up to like 90%. And then we would turn around and sell them. And these are like 300 plus multi-unit communities. But then from there, had a little bit of a change, but then got back into residential real estate in 2013.
13. Awesome. So what were you doing when you started in 2013? Were you a single agent? Were you on a team?
Single agent, just out there, I just hit the ground running. I had my very first closing, my first month in the business. And I was like, oh, well, that was easy. Nobody told me it was hard. So I just kept going. I think my first year I closed 27 families closed that year.
Wow, that
Amazing.
what year was that?
2014, like going into 2014.
Okay, so that was your first year, like, with residential. Okay, wow, that's a very good, first year, and that's when
Yeah. And then
everything
the
was
next
kind
year
of
was
starting to rebound from
It
the
was super fast paced. I loved it. Because I'd had a construction background, I worked with a lot of builders as well and had acquired communities to sell within that first year.
So
yeah.
how'd you get these clients? Were you all over social media saying, look at me, look at this car I'm driving? Which is the reason we're
Well,
"I
doing,
have a fancy car, you wanna be my client?"
right? Was that what was attracting everybody
well,
to you?
my first year in real estate, I was, to be honest, very poor. I remember trying to get a loan for $5,000 and I got denied.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah. I mean, my car was like an old like Nissan Altima. I you're asking how did I get my clients? I just put myself out there every single day. I showed up at the office every single day. I talked to anybody that I could possibly think of about real estate. And the more that I focused on it and the more that I was showing, number 1, I was passionate about it. Number 2, I was very professional despite my old car. But I started to get referrals, and then those referrals became builder referrals, and then it would be like, oh, I'd go on one listing appointment and I would get, you know, 100 listings versus one listing. And so I was able to multiply my
So, let me ask you this, like, you did commercial for so long, then you went into residential, and you did 27 units. When you say that you talk to anybody and everyone about real estate, like, what did that look like on a regular basis? Like, what kind of lead generation were you doing? How were you meeting people? Because it was your first year actually selling homes. So how were you meeting people to have all of these conversations?
I'm a naturally social person, but like most realtors, I have call reluctance, and so I did not want to be on the phone. And that meant if I'm not going to do the conventional of what I've been told to do, which is get on the phone, call from 8 to 10 a.m. in the morning, which I cannot do that. It's just not me.
Yeah.
I'm going to be real honest about how I did it, because it wasn't exactly the way everybody else does it. And so I just would start talking to people. So whether I was in my son's preschool, that was a little bit later because I didn't have him then, but you know what I mean.
Right.
I was at the gym. I'd be out with friends. I'd be sitting at the local bar. Anywhere. I'm talking about real estate, and I'm talking about it, and I'm very purposely and strategically talking about it in a good light. And I think that is where a lot of people go wrong, is that they talk about their they're almost disgruntled, right? About how
Mhm.
hard things are. And I was always very careful to always talk about real estate in an amazing light and how I was able to help these families.
Yeah, that's a good point. So when you talk about how difficult real estate is to somebody, it can give the impression that you're unsuccessful in real estate, right? But we don't want to be
Mhm.
we want the home buying and home selling process to be a positive one.
And
We don't
easy.
want it to we don't want to give the impression that it's, this horrible, difficult experience, right? So is that kind of what you mean by that?
Yeah. And I think too, you can often sound ungrateful
Oh,
for the
that is
business and the
true.
families that you do have.
Oh, that is true. Yeah.
Agents trying to prove their value to the consumer, but it just comes off the opposite way. Like, I worked
Mhm.
so hard. Look at all we went through, all the hoops we jumped through to get this family into a home. And really, at the end of the day, they want it easy for their family. They
Yep.
don't want the hoops. They don't even want to know about the hoops.
Well, I also feel like when you mention all those hoops you jumped through, it also makes it seem like you're the lead in that story.
Mhm. Not the client.
Like you're the hero who got them through this transaction. What do you think that that's one of those reasons why, um, you avoid that conversation in that sense? Like you want it to be about them, right? Like you don't want it to be about you.
Yes.
So many agents make it about themselves when they
Mhm.
close a deal.
Yeah. I don't ever want it to be about
No, I'm saying you
me.
don't want it to be. No, I'm saying a lot of
Yeah.
agents
No.
make it sound that
They,
way. Like closed another one. High five myself.
yes.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
so I'm big on, at least with social media, whenever I would have a closing, it was a highlight of that family and
Mhm.
their impact story. And so talking about, wow, they're having another baby. They were so excited. They moved up from a house, all these different things. That's what it's about. It's not about, look, I closed another home, because homes are not our clients. Like, our clients are family.
I agree 100% with that. And I think that, there's agents who are doing the opposite. And I think it's part of the reason
Mhm.
why we're having such a difficult time right now with, all of these lawsuits that are going on. It's like it's only giving them more to like hate us for. You know what I mean? That's kind of
Yeah,
like how it's pushing it.
I see videos on TikTok, um, of, like, some younger agents just getting into the business, and and some older, but it doesn't really matter about age.
Yeah.
But maybe just new to the business, and I just want to cringe.
Like, what are you noticing?
Well, what we were talking about earlier, like they're getting out of their fancy car, and they're
Yeah.
like, like everything is luxury to them, right? We
Yeah.
all sell luxury homes. And I had this conversation the other day, actually. Somebody was like, "Oh, I bet you only sell luxury homes." And I was like, "No, I help people, and I am not going to decide whether or not I'm going to help you based on how much money you can or cannot afford with a home." And so it's when you truly look at it about the people, then it'll just the business will come. You don't have to worry about, um, I only want to have this look. Like, it's a facade.
So basically, you're saying that nobody cared that you drove the Nissan. They just wanted to be your client.
Nobody
Which,
cared.
by the way, I love an Altima.
Like the early 2000s, no, actually, it was like the late 90s Altima.
Yeah.
That car was fire. My
It was
sister had
great.
that car. I loved
Yeah.
it.
Yep. Don't knock the Nissan. Okay. So
No.
what happened next? That's 2014. Take us through your journey.
So I started to get so busy. I mean, the next year we helped 54 families. And that was the moment where I was like, I have reached capacity. And customer service is extremely important to me. And I did not want the customer service to go down. So I had to hire and leverage. And that's when I started to learn leverage. I'd had a director of operations that came in who is still to this day my director of operations. And we are very tight. She is absolutely amazing. She's kind of the secret sauce in the background. She's not really in the background, but she's my right hand. And we started to build a team out. We started hiring agents. And then we're still having great success and we're growing. I was 36 years old and I had felt a lump on my chest and I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Oh, wow.
What year was that?
And that paused everything. That was 2019.
So everything's going
recently.
great. Your company's booming. You've got the leverage you need, and then that happens.
Yeah, I have amazing coaches. I mean, I am on top of my game. Health wise, I had started running. I was running marathons. I mean, everything was, and I'm using air quotes. You can't see it, but I'm using air quotes, and it was perfect. Everything really was perfect. I just moved into like our big dream house. I wasn't driving the Ultimate anymore. I had a nice car.
So what happened? So were you
life
worried
paused.
at that moment, or did you just think, let me just go get this checked out?
I was worried that moment.
Okay, you knew.
It was a very distinct, like hard lump. And so I went in and got tested, found out my doctor called me at 8:00 in the evening, gave me the news that it was cancer. You need to come in tomorrow, first thing, 7 a.m. And then the whirlwind started. And let me tell you, when you get a cancer diagnosis, that's a full-time job. Okay. So I was working and leading a team full time. And now I'm dealing with, I have a young son in diapers. I have this diagnosis that I now have to kind of manage.
And so how did you manage both? I mean, you had to run the business, right? So how did you end up, juggling all of that with this on your mind?
Well, I had to, number one, give myself permission to lean on the people around me. So like Lauren, I had mentioned, my director of operations, she really stepped up. And I mean, we had to have a code for how I was feeling. So for example, communication wise, we started to implement a green light, yellow light, red light day. And so it was a code for what I could handle. So if it was a green light day, hey, I am in it. I'm in the business. I can do everything I can possibly do. If it was a yellow light day, it would be, she's got to pick up the emails and possibly answer the phone calls right now. Like I don't have it in me. I'm in, these extensive appointments, or I'm just mentally not able to handle it. And then red light day, don't contact me with any problem. I mean, it doesn't matter if the house is burning down. Like I was not able to handle it. And so utilizing that, we were able to just kind of get through it because we were open and honest in our communication.
I love that. What made you think to adopt that? Where did you hear about it?
Well, I had always had a coach myself, but I had also had Lauren in coaching with Ops Boss coaching with Christy Grossman. And Christy had gave us that idea of how we could communicate back and forth so that the business and our clients would still get, all the attention that they needed.
And so how would you would wake up in the morning and kind of gauge how you're feeling that day? Is that how you would go by it? Or would it change throughout the day?
It could change on a dime, Nick.
Okay, so it could change.
It could change throughout the day. Like it would depend on what was happening. I could get really bad news and it would just totally throw a wrench in it. I remember that was in June of 2019. And they weren't going to schedule a surgery for me until August. And this is a really pivotal moment. I looked at my family and I said, well, if we're not going to do the surgery until August, what's one more week? And I asked my oncologist if it would matter if I pushed it out a week. And I said, great, I'm going to go to Mega Camp, which is a KW conference that we have yearly in Austin, Texas, because I knew I needed to be around the people that would lift me up and be really positive. And so I decided to go ahead and keep that trip to Mega Camp, went to it, met with one of my old business coaches who then introduced me on that trip to my current business partner, Sarah Reynolds.
That's
Love it.
amazing.
I
How
mean,
different.
it's amazing how things happen, right? Like, I always think about that movie Sliding Doors with Gwyneth Paltrow. Like, have you seen it?
No,
Where
I'm writing that
okay, so it's about have you seen that, Lindy, at all? It's called Sliding Doors. So this movie reminds me
I
of
haven't,
kind
but I
of
just
like,
wrote it down.
I did
yeah,
too.
whenever something like that, like if you hadn't pushed your
Mhm.
surgery back 1 week, you would never have gone to Mega Camp and you would never have met Sarah, and then you wouldn't be working with her, and then we wouldn't be having this podcast. So like it all builds up to the podcast, Lindy, don't you know? So it was Sliding Doors is about it's
Yep.
two stories. It's a story about a woman who gets on the train and meets her I think she meets her a guy who becomes her husband, and then they live this life. And then there's another story where she misses the train and
Oh,
some other things happen. So it's just like every little thing in your life, happens for a reason. Whether you miss the train, don't miss the train, whether you push your surgery back, don't push your surgery back. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like it was a blessing in disguise.
Yep. So so we met in at Mega Camp, and then we continued the relationship for a few months. We were like, you know what? They were looking to expand. They loved Atlanta. We started to have that conversation, and we decided to partner with each other. And we launched our new business March of 2020.
wow. So,
Do you remember what happened March of 2020?
oh my gosh, everything shut down.
Yeah, I remember.
The
March
world
13th.
shut down.
We're on the
Wow.
curve, but we stayed the course. Yeah, so we stayed the course. We launched the business. We had immense growth right out of the gate, and we continued to do so for another year and a half. And then a year and a half into our partnership, I had gone in for a checkup. And at that checkup, I was told that my cancer had come back. Not only did I have one type of cancer, but I had two.
Oh my goodness.
That was
What was the second kind?
2021.
So I had two different breast cancers. There's not just one kind. I had invasive ductal carcinoma, which was a recurrent cancer. It was the same cancer I had that had come back. And I had another tumor, which was encapsulated papillary carcinoma with invasive components. And it's just random.
My God.
That started everything. That's the moment where you haven't even heard the story yet.
Okay, well, we're listening.
So y'all want to go? All right.
Yeah.
So I was diagnosed. I have to get scheduled for surgery again. That's the first thing. Was going to go in for a double mastectomy. And I had started not to feel very good. And I couldn't quite put my finger on why I wasn't feeling good. And in my head, I was in a little bit of denial. I'm like, you can't have two things wrong with you at once. You cannot have two things wrong with you at once. Like, Lindy, suck it up. You're fine. You're not in any pain. And then finally, after my husband took me 2 or 3 times, that drove me to the emergency room because I was in so much pain and I refused to get out of the car and make him drive me home. The third time I was in the fetal position on the living room floor, he made me get out, go to the emergency room. Come to find out, I had a kidney stone lodged that had to have emergency surgery for removal because I was about to have a double mastectomy. They didn't want me experiencing both of those at the same time. So that kind of started everything. And we just ran into complications along the way. So in December, because I'd had radiation the first time and I'd had surgery on the radiated tissue, all of my skin died. I had to do 20 rounds of hyperbaric treatment, oxygen chamber treatment, and it wasn't progressing. So, and I'm not a morning person, and I had to be there at 5:30 in the morning. That was really tough. So then it wouldn't heal. I had to go into an emergency surgery to have the skin removed. And then, okay, I'm trucking along, right? I get COVID. So I get COVID during this time. Then all of this, I am maybe a couple of weeks later, I'm through COVID, but I don't really feel well again. And I'm not a complainer when it comes to this stuff, but I just couldn't quite put my finger on it. My surgeon called me in and said, get in here. You never complain about not feeling well. Well, come to find out, I had cellulitis, which is skin infection. And I needed around the clock antibiotics, and they immediately put me into the hospital. And then about a week later, so I had to go back in for emergency surgery to have to clean it out. So that happened. Then I was on
Oh,
IV antibiotics for about 3 to 4 weeks around the clock at home with home health. And then I had reconstruction surgery, which was a 10 about a 9-hour surgery.
mm,
So that happened, but it failed. So the very next day, I had to go back into a surgery. That was another 4 or 5 hour surgery to redo that surgery. Then from there, I heal from that surgery. So how many surgeries is that so far? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 surgeries, and I'm only halfway through.
wow.
So then I know. Then we get to the summertime. I have hormone positive cancer. So my doctors went ahead and I had a hysterectomy. Then from there, I go in and have another reconstruction around the September timeframe. I then go and I have a third reconstruction um, in the fall. I also had COVID then. So I had another round of COVID. Forgot I also had shingles. And that was exactly 365 days. And that was my life for 365 days. So if you put
Wow.
all of that on a timeline, that's something every couple of weeks. I mean, every couple of weeks I was getting bad news and I still have a company going.
That's crazy. So, did you tell everyone, don't talk to me this year, just handle everything? Or did you still have your hands in the business?
So my business partner is amazing and she stepped up and realized, I mean, there was nothing I could do. I lived on opioids. Like, let's be honest. Like I was through that many surgeries. You have to take, you have to mitigate the pain
Yeah.
somehow. And I decided not to really participate as much. And she handled everything that she possibly could. There's bumps along the way and whatnot, but it is what it is. It's what we had to do to survive. It affected the entire
Wow.
company.
So it was just red light every day.
Yes. It was
Your
a red light year.
Do you want to announce your new role? Because I think it's
Oh, there's a
so
new role?
yes.
Ooh, what is it?
Well, thanks. So I didn't even tell you the cool stuff I did after all that stuff.
Oh,
I had a
okay.
great year
Oh,
Oh,
last
no.
year.
well, I was looking at your Facebook and it looks like you're running marathons and everything.
Yeah, so I decided after 4 months after my last surgery. Now, mind you, I'd only averaged about 500 steps a day. I decided that I was going to go climb Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa. And I would summit on my 40th birthday. Now,
That's
there's no
actually my
reason I
wife.
should have
That's
been
like
able to
my
climb that mountain.
wife, like, that's her dream to do that. So she's gonna be so jealous.
Well, tell her to call me. I'll tell her all about it. But I made it to the top and I got down. And then from there, I started to train for the New York City Marathon, which I'd been training before. I had to be medically deferred, and so
Mhm.
I finally was able to complete the New York City Marathon last year, and I'm also training for it again this year. So
Wow.
awesome things
Amazing.
on the horizon. And to what Stacey was talking about, I just accepted a position. It was announced last night.
Oh,
And the new VP of growth for Her Best Life, which is an
oh,
amazing
wait a minute.
organization that
So
helps.
no, I was gonna tell you something. So I bumped into at family reunion. I can never pronounce her name. What is her name? She's
Seychelles.
the blonde. Yeah, Seychelles. I can never pronounce her name.
Yeah.
I bumped into her and she was super like, running. She was with, I forget who she was with. She was with someone else from the podcast, but I can't remember
I bet she
which.
was with Carissa.
Maybe. Oh yes, she was with Carissa. Yeah, now that I remember, because I know Carissa's hair anywhere. So she was like, we're going to talk to someone who's maybe our new VP of growth for Her Best Life. Like, that's so exciting. So now that you mentioned that, I was there when they were going to talk to you. That was cool. Just wanted to like bring
Yeah.
that back a little bit.
That's how I knew who you were with because I remember that meeting
Oh, okay,
and where we met and
okay.
everything. It was with Carissa and
That's so cool.
Seychelles.
So as the
Yeah.
VP of growth,
So
what are you going to be doing for them?
focusing on growing the organization and the mission. I'm so passionate about just fearless women and their, helping with their transformative growth. And I just hope I can offer a little bit of inspiration for them while we grow the mission.
Yeah, that's so cool. Well, congratulations on that.
There's no better person for that role. I'm so, so,
Thank
so excited
you.
for you.
So I want to let's switch gears a little bit. Okay, so I want to talk about social media. So your social media, like, you don't have like, the huge follower count, right? Like that everyone thinks that you need. you know, in order to succeed in this business. So like without that, do you have a social media strategy, or and like if you do, what is it, or where do your clients typically come from? Since you're not like, since you don't have like that, influencer, quote unquote, huge following that we you know talk about on this podcast, and don't think that it's all that important at the end of the day.
Yeah, so we have a very different, just a different model than I think most agents do.
Mhm.
So, before it was just word of mouth, and I was really good at open houses and just being out there. But I knew that was not. I knew I wanted to grow the business, and I knew that wasn't necessarily duplicatable because that was just based on me and my personality. And so that is one of the reasons why Sarah Reynolds and I and her mom Debbie came together. I saw that they had a model that worked, and that model is outbound lead generation. I'm sorry, inbound lead generation, like inbound calling, like people call us. So we do advertising, and then they come to us. So now it's a little different. It's a duplicatable business. It is not based on just a personality. It's based, people are reaching out to us because we're offering value, and that's what we promote, which is programs that we can offer for different solutions for clients going through different things with, selling their home or buying a home.
So the database is pretty much running everything in your marketing.
We do focus on our database. It is one of our number one lead pillars. However, I mean, we have so many different lead pillars, from radio, direct mail. We're covering all of the things.
Yeah.
But again,
Love
it's
it.
not based on us or our social media, that's for sure.
Before we went live, you talked about how you have commercials on the radio. What how does that work for you? Do you feel like the radio branding brings in business, or is it like kind of part of the grand scheme of things? I've always wondered about that.
Part of the grand scheme of things.
Okay. And so like,
yeah, I probably wouldn't recommend just going and blowing your monthly budget on radio without a plan.
Yeah, like I hear a lot of agents say, should I get a billboard? I'm like, yeah, but you can't just have a billboard. You have to have other things
to do
that
all the things.
bring recognition.
All the things before the billboard. Do all the things before the radio. Yeah.
Yep, like
I love that you've got a
So
scale.
I mean, we really just, it's scalable. And it is, I had to work my way up to it though. I mean, you can't just start with a big marketing or advertising budget. So it was just kind of grassroots, open houses, that type of thing.
You can start with no money, be told no for a $5,000 personal loan, drive a Nissan, and end up with radio commercials.
Well, that's the thing about real estate is like that's the thing about real estate. You could really, with real estate, you could really start in this business with no money.
Oh, I had zero money, and I didn't have to hold any inventory. The inventory somebody else owns. I'm just facilitating the sale.
Oh yeah, right. That's another great point. We don't own any of the inventory. We just want to make it look good.
That's right.
So you were having conversations, which was free, right? Open houses, free for the most part. Maybe some cookies, bottled waters. That's it. And you
gotta have the cookies. Gotta have. So how are you feeling these days?
I feel amazing. I am really just tackling everything that I want to. I am super optimistic about the future. And I'm just so happy. I am genuinely happy.
That's so cool. And the cancer is gone.
That we know of. I don't know.
Yeah, well, yeah. My father had a kidney removed a couple years ago because he had a tumor there. So, he's older. He's in his 70s. But yeah, he's always going back like every 3-4 months, and they're just checking. But it's one of those things, right? Like it's going to be something that you have to do forever, I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll get forever checked.
Forever checked.
Well, you are such a light. You're such an inspiration to everyone. So I hope so many people listen to your story. And then also tell us about your podcast and where they can find you.
Yeah. What's it called?
Okay. So it's called Don't Forget to Live Today, which is named after a post I had made about reflecting upon climbing and summiting Mount Kilimanjaro. And the very last sentence of that post said, "Don't forget to live today." And the reason why that is the actual why I said that was because I was just in survival mode for an entire year. I felt like I had no choice. Just everything that could possibly go wrong was going wrong. And it wasn't just like, oh, I had like a bad month or something. I mean, it's every couple of weeks. It was so bad. So when I climbed the mountain, I felt like I was really, truly living, and it was really hard. And one of my friends that went with me, mutual friend of Stacey's and mine, and she was like, "You've got to tell your story. You've got to tell people, what happened, so that somebody going through something tough will know it." Well, we tried different iterations of getting it out there. Somebody was like, "Write a book." I'm like, "I'm not really a writer." Somebody said, "Oh, just do a podcast and just talk about it." And I thought, okay, we tried it, and I was like, I just feel like I'm talking about myself, and I didn't like that either. So how it's come to be is it's a podcast about people that have gone through hardships or their own proverbial mountains, and they have come out on the other side, and it's just their story. And then we have a secondary cast, or a second episode, that Laura, who's the other co-host, and I just reflect upon the guests that we had, and we go over their story, and through their story, my story comes out. And so it's a little cadence like that. So it'll be somebody else and their story. We've had people whose sons were like diagnosed deaf. We've had somebody who lost their sister in a car wreck, which I know many of us know. We've had friends that have lost their son, and so just they're telling their story, and throughout that, my story kind of is interwoven between it.
I have a question for you.
So hopefully to inspire.
Yeah, I have a question for you. There's so many people, so especially in this business, like there's a lot of agents who have the woe is me mindset, right? Like it's everybody else's fault that I'm not succeeding, aside from me. And it's just this tantrum all the time, right? Negative mindset. You've been through so many challenges. Did you keep that positive mindset throughout the whole entire thing? Because so many of us would have just thrown in the towel, but you didn't do that. So I'm just amazed by how positive you stayed. What did you do to keep that positivity?
So to be honest, I disassociated, and I didn't realize I did that. But I literally removed my thought process from my actual body and being, and I took therapy to figure that out. But what it looked like was I could just turn off the pain. I could physically turn off the pain, and I would be able to focus on my son. He kept me going, and I would focus on the future. Like I knew I wanted to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. So if I'd go in for a surgery, I'm like, you know what? I'm one day closer to getting to do my dream. I would play little games in my own head. Like for example, I would go to bed, I'd put my son down, and I would go to bed like around 7:30 at night, which I'm a night owl. Okay. But I would go to bed at 7:30 at night because I knew that if I would just go to sleep and I woke up tomorrow, I was one day further away from a surgery. And I was that just an increment closer to being healthy again. So when I fast forward, when I climbed the Mount Kilimanjaro, I was pretty numb, emotionally wise, from everything, that I didn't even have an emotional response on top of the mountain. I was like, okay, I just summited Mount Kilimanjaro. That's awesome. Let's go down. And then fast forward, I ran the New York City Marathon about 6 months later. And that was the moment that I started to believe that my body was strong again. And it was like my mind and my body meshed back together. Like I had to prove to myself my body was strong for me to trust it. I mean, you when you have cancer, you lose trust in your body.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Appreciate you saying that.
So I'm really optimistic, just because I just know that there's so much more out of life than, being in the hospital or going through tough times. Like I get it. I have been in tough times. I mean, everything that, any new agent out there, any agent has experienced, I can promise you I've experienced it too. But if you can keep your mindset going forward, just a little bit, forward is forward. Doesn't matter the pace. You can just keep going forward. Then you'll have success, and just stay true and be authentic to who you are.
Hey, what was your time in the New York City Marathon?
Don't ask that question.
Is that not well? I'm just is that like an inappropriate question? I don't know. I'm not a marathoner.
Well,
What?
you have
No,
to
you finished.
ask the question.
You finished. So
I
that's what
finished.
matters. That's
It's
what matters.
Nick. It's the equivalent of asking either how old I am, but which you already kind of know, or what my weight is. All right.
Oh, is it really? I had no idea. I should have asked you if you finished, right? Or is that still inappropriate? I
I
don't know.
finished. No, you
Good.
can
I'm
ask
glad.
that. Some
New York
people,
City is a
some
rough city to run around. So, you know. That's that. What did it feel like? Like, was that your first full marathon?
I had
Did you
done
just?
countless
What did
half
you feel
marathons.
like? Like when you run when
In
you run
pain.
that far for that long? What's it feel like when you're done? Like, do you just collapse? I don't know how. You know.
Yeah, you want to collapse, but that's actually one thing that you shouldn't do because the blood can rush from your head and you can pass out. But I can actually let me tell
Oh,
you what I did. This is what happened. I'm coming around the corner. I know exactly where the finish line is, and I'm just running, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna make this. I'm this I'll get emotional about. Like I'm gonna make this marathon, and I got to the finish line, and I just threw my arms up. Now a lot of people will raise their arms when they cross a finish line, but this was so significant because I was not able to move my arms for 4 months. I could not lift my arms up for 4 months, and this was a big middle finger to breast cancer that I can finish a marathon and just hold my hands up above my head and cross that finish line with all the glory. And then I thought I was going to be a one and done. But the moment I crossed the finish line, I thought, oh, I can do that better.
well, thank you so much. This has been super fun and inspiring. What do you think, Stacey? Don't you think?
Oh my gosh, yeah. She's just incredible. So I'm hopeful that people listen to this and then stop having dumb excuses for why they can't achieve things in their life, right?
Right. And if you like what you listen to, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to leave a comment, share it with a loved one, because that's how you grease up that algorithm and make us the number one podcast in the world, which is a pretty lofty goal, but it's a race between ours and yours, Lindy. So,
All right.
we'll see.
Hey, you already know I'm a marathon finisher.
Oh, you do finish marathons. It
She
doesn't.
finished the marathon
I learned something new. Don't ask a woman if she finished the marathon.
or
I
her
wonder
time.
The
if
time.
you're
The
right.
time.
Ask
Don't
what?
ask the time.
Yeah.
Just the
Don't
time.
ask the time. Right. My bad. My bad. Well, thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you on the next one. Lindy, we appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.